Alright everyone, you're watching NFTV Extra. My name's Matt and welcome to the Transfer Table.
NFTV Extra.
Today's video, the Transfer Table, is all about the teams in the Premier League and the business they have done over the course of this summer transfer window. I'll be ranking them from top to bottom in the business they have done. That's the incomings and outgoings and where it'll suit their club. Obviously, things will be different. Not all the clubs are going to be judged on the same standards. You know, the players that Villa are signing aren't going to be the same calibre that the ones City are signing. So they're not judged on that. It's judged on what's best for their club and how I feel that they have done in their transfer window to improve their squad. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it right at the bottom of the table. And I say there's been a transfer window going on. For Newcastle fans, it might not feel like it because we have signed absolutely nobody, and that's why, unfortunately, I've got to put us right at the bottom of the table in 20th position. A shocking transfer window, really. You know, Steve Bruce came out at the start and said we've got a budget of around 10 million. We weren't expecting to sign, you know, mega stars, but we were hoping that maybe we bring in one or two players. Maybe Joe Willock would come back on loan after the stonking form that he had at the end of the season. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. We're the only team in the Premier League yet to sign a single senior player, and we've also offloaded some players as well. Florian Lejeune's left for an undisclosed fee. We've released Yoshinori Muto as well, so practically paid him to leave the club, as well as Christian Atsu leaving. I believe he went to Saudi Arabia as well. He went on a free transfer, so not making any profit there. And of course, releasing Henri Saivet finally, and Andy Carroll after he chose not to renew his contract. So we've freed up a lot of space on the wage bill, but we haven't capitalised on that by bringing anyone in, except we've increased Lee Charnley's salary again, so good on him. But yes, another shocking transfer window for us. Obviously, it hasn't closed quite yet. This video is a bit premature, but we'll see if we can bring in anyone. I'd love to see Joe Willock back at the club for another season at least. Second bottom is a club who don't usually belong at the bottom end of the Premier League, but they do in this table, and that is Spurs. So they've done a bit of business this transfer window. The main talking point has been Harry Kane. You know, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Are City going to come in from him? They've managed to keep a hold of him as of yet at the time of recording this video. He didn't turn up for training originally, but now he said he's going to come back. So we'll see where that transfer window goes for him and the club. But I'm more focusing on the incoming signings for Spurs. So they brought in Brian Gill. He looks like one of the guys off the Big Bang Theory. He plays for Sevilla, or did play for Sevilla, for around 25 mil, with Eric Lamela going the other way as well. Plays as a winger on either side, so probably if they do keep a hold of Kane, then Spurs are going to play Kane, Son and Hill in the attack, potentially replacing that Gareth Bale that filled that role last season. He's a decent little player, but I'm not sure that's the area that they needed to focus on the most, especially with the sale of Alderweireld. Obviously, his best days are behind him. They managed to make a tidy 11 million profit off him, roughly. But they've sold him. Vertonghen went last season, and they are kind of a bit light at the back, and that's where I would have strengthened for them. So they have signed Christian Romero on loan from Atalanta, but that's a bit of a short-sighted signing for me because he signed permanently for Atlanta this season. He was on loan last season, just signed for Atlanta, and now he's being loaned out of Spurs, so there's no way Spurs are going to sign him permanently. So I'm not sure what the point of bringing someone in like that is for a loan when you're a club like Spurs who's got to have a view to the future. You know, they're in a Champions League final a couple of years ago. So they brought in the Brian Hill, they brought in Romero, like I mentioned, and they've also brought in Pierre Galini from Atalanta, the goalkeeper as well. Bit of an unusual one that. It's on loan with an option to buy, probably with a view to replacing Hugo Lloris. But for this season, I can't see him coming in and taking that number one spot. Despite being quite a good goalkeeper, Galini probably isn't going to come in and take that number one spot. So we'll see how that goes for them. But they're second bottom, mainly because of their incomings. They have got rid of Juan Foyth for a decent amount of money. Obviously, offloading a lot of senior players like Danny Rose and Joe Hart off the wage bill as well. So a decent bit of business there, but not good enough with the incoming signings for me personally. Third bottom is a bit of a tricky one, taking up the last relegation spots. It is Brighton, because they have made some shocking signings in my opinion. I say shocking, they're unproven signings, so I could eat my words come a few months time. But yeah, a couple of signings that I've personally never heard of. They've signed Mwepu for £20 million from RB Salzburg. He's a central midfielder, gets a few goals in the Austrian league. Not going to lie, I've never heard of the lad, so spending £20 million from an Austrian league, could be a bit of a risk. Hopefully it pays off. Well, hopefully not for us, but hopefully for them it pays off for them. And the other signing they've made is Sherpin, a goalkeeper, costing them £4.5 million. Bit of a strange one, that, considering they've let Matty Ryan go on a free, who was a decent Premier League goalkeeper in my opinion. Obviously Sanchez is going to take that number 1 spot for them, but really they needed to strengthen up top. For me, they don't get enough goals. That, you know, we talk about expected goals sometimes, and they had a lot of expected goals but no one to finish them off. The reason I say they are provisionally third bottom at the moment is because they've been strongly linked with Odsonne Edouard from Celtic. Now that'll be an incredible signing for anyone in the Premier League, anyone outside the top 6 anyway. I think he's a great player, and if Brighton do manage to get a hold of him, that'll be a very good signing and probably lift them out of the bottom 3 in this table. But for now, he's in that Brighton are in that bottom 3 for me, unless they can sign Edouard and to lift them out in terms of the business they've done this transfer window. They've offloaded obviously Ben White, which is a major negative for them. He was one of the most versatile players in their squad and undoubtedly the best player in their squad. Defensive midfielder, right back, centre back, he could do anything, and obviously he's gone to Arsenal for £50 million. So it's good business that they've managed to get that much money for him, but he was a key player for them, and if they were serious about staying in the Premier League and building to a better future, he would probably be the player. Him and Lamptey would probably be the players that you build your squad around. So bad business from them, but you can't really say no to £50 million. The other bad bit of business they've done is offloaded Alireza Jahanbakhsh. Previously their record signing for what I believe was around 15 mil. They've just sold him for just under £1 million. So really poor business from them. Coming in just outside the relegation zone in 17th place is the first of our newly promoted teams, and that is Brentford. Now Brentford newly promoted to the Premier League for the first time, so they won't have a big budget to spend. They haven't offloaded lots of players to bring in the cash like they usually do every summer. They've kept a hold a lot of their star players. The only players that they have spent on, they've made 3 senior signings this season. Christophe Ager from Celtic, centre back that Newcastle were after in the early parts of the transfer window. Brentford beat them to the post for £14 million. So we'll see how he fares in the Premier League. Hopefully he can be the solution to their defensive frailties. The second multi-million pound signing that they've made is Onyeka from FC Midtjylland, a 23-year-old central midfielder. I won't lie, I've never heard of the lad. Hopefully that's not £9 million down the drain for Brentford. We'll see how he gets on in the Premier League. That's quite a step up from where he's been playing, so we'll see where he gets on there. Brentford, like I say, not offloading anyone for any significant amount of money. They've let Dalsgaard, Marcondes and Balcom go, the first 2 on a free, the last one on a loan. So not a lot of activity for Brentford in the transfer market this window, obviously more than Newcastle, which is why they're higher in the table, but they do have a lot of quality in that side already, so maybe they can stay in the Premier League. I guess we'll wait and find out, but for me, in terms of transfers, they're sitting just outside the relegation zone in this table. Sitting just above them at the moment, at least. This is another one of those provisionals that if they get some deals done, they might shoot up the table. But at the moment, Chelsea have had a really, really poor transfer window. Not that they needed to sign anyone, but you know, they're not going out and getting these big money players like they usually might do. Obviously, they won the Champions League last year, but their goal will be to win the Premier League this year. At the time of recording, the only senior transfer that they have made is Marcus Bettinelli on a free from Fulham. The old goalkeeper is probably just to fill the English quota that they have to have, the homegrown players, like they signed Rob Green a few seasons ago. That's why Man City have Scott Carson. That's the only senior signing they have made. Having said that, Romelu Lukaku has been heavily linked with a return to Chelsea, £100 million to bring him back to the club, which will be a fantastic signing. It's a lot of money and it's a lot of pressure, but he has done it with Everton and he did do it with Man United. He did get quite a few goals for them, even though he was slated when he played for them. Obviously, he's gone away, he's improved, he's had a stonking season with Inter Milan. He played fantastic in the Euros with Belgium, so it'd be great to see him back in the Premier League if Chelsea do make that signing, and that would shoot them right up this table because that is one of the best strikers in the world at the moment. In terms of their outgoings, they've sold Tomori for £27 million, which to me was a bit of a strange one because they've sold this young English centre-back who's clearly good enough to play in the Italian league where you're signing Lukaku from, yet you rumoured to sign Koundé from who's a similar age to Tomori, but he's playing in the Spanish league and he's French instead. It just seems a strange decision to offload someone for less than 30 mil and then spend more on someone else when they're a similar kind of player, similar age as well. So Strange decision to let him go, as he was such a promising talent for them, but good profit from that anyway. But just above them in this table is West Ham. So decent season for them last season. Obviously Lingard was the talisman in that team. They haven't really looked to replace him this year, which I think is a bit of a disappointment. I don't know if they were going to try and get him back on a permanent, but they haven't even signed anyone to replace him. They've even let Felipe Anderson go to Lazio, and they've released Fabian Balbuena as well. The only two signings that they have made, one of which is quite impressive on loan, is Alphonse Areola, who was obviously at Fulham last year, quite a good goalkeeper, on loan from PSG. That's a good signing from them. Not sure if he'll be a backup to Fabianski or if he'll take the number one shirt off him. And the other one is Craig Dawson, somehow. For 2 mil. Nothing more to say about that. I mean, they should be looking elsewhere, in my opinion. You know, they're still struggling for goals up top, so it'll be interesting to see how they perform without Lingard this season. But yeah, that's about that for up to 15th place. Just above West Ham in this table, for me anyway, are Southampton. So we'll focus on their incomings first. They signed Theo Walcott on a free again. They've got him permanently this time. And they've signed 2 other players. One is Livramento, an ex-Chelsea under-23 star. Can play either fullback position or on the wing. He seems like quite a talented young lad. He's been involved with Southampton's pre-season as well, so it wouldn't be surprised to see him make his first team debut early in this season. That was quite a cheap one for them, only £5 million. And their most expensive transfer this window is Romain Perraud, a left-back that Leeds were after. I know he's a talented young player, and with Southampton letting Ryan Bertrand go on a free to Leicester, this is definitely going to be their first choice left back going into this season, I would imagine anyway, unless they plan on playing a youth product there, or Livramento, of course. So Perraud, decent little signing there. The outgoings are where it gets interesting for Southampton though, because Danny Ings, out of absolutely nowhere, ended up going to Aston Villa for about £30 million. Good business from Southampton to get that much money out of him, considering he only had, I think, a year left on his contract. But it's a strange decision given that he is the source of most, if not all, of their goals. So it'll be interesting to see whether they struggle to score goals without him. They also sold Angus Gunn for £5 million and let Lamina go finally for £5 million as well. I thought Newcastle could have maybe put a bid in for Lamina. I rate him quite highly. Bit of a hothead, but he's a decent little player. But yeah, Southampton making a decent bit of profit there, just upwards of £40 million and spending about 16 of it. So making a good profit, which is why they're quite high in this. At the end of the day, they have turned over a profit without losing too much quality. They have lost their star striker, but the others were kind of fringe players at this point. So decent transfer window for them. Not fantastic, but yeah, they're around the mid to low table mark for me in 14th place. Just above them is once upon a time champions Liverpool, only making the one senior signing so far, and that was right at the start. Ibrahim Konate from RB Leipzig, one of the highest rated young centre-backs in the top 5 European leagues. Around £35-36 million for him. Decent signing. I think Liverpool are quite stacked at centre-back. They're just really, really unfortunate with injuries. So it's a smart signing because you know Van Dijk's going to be coming back this season. He'll obviously be your number one name on the team sheet, but it provides competition for Joe Gomez, for Joel Matip, and for those other young lads like Nat Phillips and Reece Williams as well. So he'll come in. I think he'll probably start. He clearly is very passionate about the club already, so well, the way he goes on Twitter, he is. Good signing from them, but that's the only signing, which is why they're this low. They don't really need to sign too many more players. I would have maybe addressed the creativity in that side. They had a bit of a weak season. I say a bit of a weak season. They still did really well. But when your big guns aren't firing, who's going to step in and fill that play? I thought Firmino might have gone this transfer window. He's coming to the end of his Liverpool career, in my opinion. So surprised to see him not moved on. But they have moved a few players on. They've got rid of Harry Wilson permanently for £12.6 million, and Awoniyi as well for £6 million, going to Germany, I believe. And of course, letting Gini Wijnaldum go on a free, which in my opinion was a horrible bit of business. I know they have a policy about signing contracts with older players, but he was a fantastic player in that team and a real engine in that midfield that you really needed, and I think they'll miss him a lot this season, and they've absolutely not replaced him. So if their midfield can stay fit with Fabinho, even Oxlade-Chamberlain, Henderson, Keita, Thiago, of course, you know, they do have a stacked midfield, but Wijnaldum was a key in that midfield, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on without him this season. But that's Liverpool, and sitting just above them is the second of our newly promoted teams, and that is Watford. Started really strong in this transfer window. I believe one of the first signings was Dennis. He's a striker. He only cost them £3.6 million. He's got a lot of pace. He's not really cut it. He played for Cologne and Bruges. Did okay, but didn't set the world alight. So it's one of those ones you take a punt on a cheap striker, add him to a league with a bit of spice and see how he gets on. He signed him quite early on. They signed Josh King on a free after he flopped at Everton. Danny Rose on a free. Obviously, we had him up north here. I think he's not the best player in the world, but to get him on a free, decent business from them. They've also signed a lad called Loser, a £9 million centre mid, spelled Louza, not loser, and Ashley Fletcher from Middlesbrough on a free as well. So some good business, like not spending a lot of money there for Watford, not risking too much, but bringing in players that can add some quality to the first team, which is where I think Brentford fell a bit short, which is why I put them lower down. So some good business from them. Also somehow scamming West Ham for £2 million for Dawson, and getting rid of Ben Wilmot for £1.5 million as well. And finally, Ashraf Lazar is out of a club after he was released by Watford at the end of last season, as well as Carlos Sanchez, who's well into his mid-30s now. So good business from Watford on the outgoings there, getting rid of some high earners off the wage bill and bringing in some cheap young talent that could probably cut it in the Premier League. The next three clubs in 11th, 10th and 9th are three clubs that have done a decent amount of business for not too much money. They've done smart business in my eyes, which is around the middle table in this instance, just because it's smart business. They're not risking too much, but they're not risking too little as well. At the bottom of those three clubs, in my opinion, is Wolves in 11th place. So they sold their best asset, in my opinion, in Rui Patricio to Roma for around £11 million, which is a decent price for a keeper that's getting on in his years. But still, he was their star player over the past few seasons, in my opinion. So to sell him was a bit of a negative, but they did replace him with Jose Sarr, who I believe was a goalkeeper for Olympiacos, signed him for around £7 million. So they've turned over a profit and they've kept a first-team goalkeeper in the fold as well. So smart business from them. And they've also signed Ait Nouri for £10 million. Left wing back, he was on loan last season. They've signed him permanently, converting that deal. Probably the biggest coup for Wolves is they've got Trincao on loan from Barcelona, one of Barcelona's most talented young products at the moment, and they do have a lot of them, but due to wage restrictions they've had to loan him out. So he'll be playing for Wolves a lot this season, I imagine, taking up that right hand side. I imagine they signed him as a backup just in case Adama leaves this season. He's been linked with moves away to clubs like Spurs, but I wouldn't be surprised, even if Adama stays, to see Trincao involved in the first team fold quite regularly as well. Coming in just above them is Everton. So obviously changed managers. Rafa Benitez is now the Everton manager, and you can tell with the business that they've done over the course of this transfer window. It's cheap, proven players or cheap, promising players. It's good business all in all, in my opinion. Damari Gray for £1.8 million is a steal. Once one of the most promising English talents in the league at one time. Didn't quite cut it then. He's gone away, spent some time at Leverkusen, and now he's back for £1.8 million for Everton. Good attacking player, will probably bomb down the wing and get service into Calvert-Lewin, which is, we know Rafa likes a target man, and Salomon Rondon. So Calvert-Lewin, I think, is going to thrive with the support he's going to get from Damari Gray this season, as well as Andros Townsend on a free. We know Townsend had his time at Newcastle as well. He was a great player for us, loved to whip a ball into the box, like I say, for Calvert-Lewin. He's going to thrive off those two being signed. And an experienced head to cover for Pickford as well, Asmir Begovic as well. Robin Olsen, the backup keeper, going back off loan to his parent club Roma. So Begovic, a decent backup signing there for free, of course. And then the outgoings, they've released Bezic and Balassi, which is a good amount off the wage bill. Sold Bernard for about £1 million, and then let Walcott and Joshua King go on a free. So a massive lot off the wage bill there, which frees up some room potentially for a big money transfer in January or towards the end of this season, this summer's transfer window as well. Just above Everton in that 9th spot are Burnley. Now, don't jump down my throat. I know at the start of the video I said everything is relative. You're not going to expect Burnley to sign the same players for Man City, and definitely not for the same amount. So when I tell you that Burnley have only signed 3 players and they've signed them for a total of £12 million from Stoke, Scunthorpe and Crystal Palace, don't jump down my throat. So they've signed Nathan Collins for £12 million from Stoke, centre-back with a bright future. It's a very Burnley signing. It's a Sean Dyche signing. No nonsense. get rid. Two of the players that they've signed are a centre-back and the other one's a goalkeeper. Very Burnley signings all round. Good transfer window for them. Spending £12 million on 3 players, like I say, bringing in Wayne Hennessy on a free. Good experienced Premier League goalkeeper there as backup or potentially even a number 1. I am worried where the creativity is going to come from for Burnley this season. Dwight McNeil can't carry the whole team on his back with Chris Wood. So maybe I would have liked to see them sign a striker if they'd wanted to avoid the drop with some confidence. But some good business all round for them. They sold Ben Gibson for £8 million as well, recouping some of that money they've already spent as well. And then offloading a load of senior players to get some off the wage bill. Releasing Robbie Brady and loaning Bailey Peacock-Farrell out as well. So good business from Burnley all round there, which is why they take my 9th spot. Crunch time then, top 8 in the Premier League for the best business done in the summer transfer window. Of course, this is only my opinion. If you want to get involved in the comments down below, let me know what you think if I'm talking absolute rubbish, if you think your club's had a better window than I've given it credit for, or if you think someone should be right at the top when they should be right at the bottom. Get involved in the comments, start a discussion with other people as well, and don't forget to drop a like on the video as well. Right, top 8. In 8th position, I'm going to put Arsenal in there, mainly for the one deal that's caught the headlines all summer long, Ben White for £50 million. Now, it's a lot of money, we all know that, but with Premier League tax and English tax, he was never ever going to be cheap. He's got a good career ahead of him, whether he needs to knuckle down and shore up that Arsenal defence, because Arsenal's problem wasn't creativity at the end of last season. They had Smith Rowe, Aubameyang, Lacazette all knocking in goals, even Pepe, who's been a bit of a flop for them, but the problem was with the leaky defence at the back. You know, you've got a shaky goalkeeper behind you. You need a proper centre-back that's going to take control of the game, and I think Ben White can be that player for Arsenal. But Ben White, fantastic signing for Arsenal in my opinion, and I think that he's going to shine this season under Arsenal. I wouldn't be surprised if they got Champions League football again. The other 2 signings that they have made is Nuno Tavares from Benfica, left back for 7.2 million, and Lokonga from Anderlecht for 15 million, a central midfielder. So for that amount of money, you'd be expecting both of those players to be sniffing around the starting 11. Obviously, you're probably not getting in ahead of Kieran Tierney at left back, but in terms of rotation, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the starting 11. Some good little signings there, and they've loaned out Guendouzi, who I wouldn't be surprised to see leave the club permanently next summer, and William Saliba, who's yet to get that first team experience with Arsenal properly after they signed him a couple of seasons ago. So decent business from Arsenal all round. Mainly Ben White is why they're high up here for me. I think he's a fantastic player and a great signing for Arsenal, exactly what they needed. And just above them, Manchester City, of course, yet again going out into the transfer market and splashing big, £100 million on Jack Grealish. And little old Scott Carson being brought in permanently on a free as well after being on loan last season. So good business from them in terms of getting in a quality player. Whether he's worth £1 million is going to be constantly up for debate. In my opinion, it's far too much for one player. But if you're going to spend it on anyone, why not make it Jack Grealish? Decent little player. However, you know, is he going to be a first team starter? Because Pep is renowned for his rotation for Man City. So is he going to play him on the left wing? In that case, does he get in ahead of Raheem Sterling? Is he going to play him on the right wing? Does he get in ahead of Mahrez? Is he going to play him as a creative 10? Does he get in above De Bruyne? Is he going to be an impact sub? Strange one from Man City. He is a good player. I'm not sure it's what they needed. I would have liked to see them bring in a big striker instead, like Haaland or Kane, to replace the outgoing Aguero. I'm not saying that they haven't got strikers. You know, Gabby Jesus and Ferran Torres are good enough. But if you're going to spend big on one player, why be a creative player that you've already got an abundance of, you know? So good business from them, which is why they're at number 7. And also on the outgoing, they did recoup a bit of that fee. I know it was quite funny, Pep Guardiola saying that he only cost 40 million because they made 60 million in transfers last season. So that was quite funny, but they have sold Angelino permanently to Leipzig for 16 million, Harrison to Leeds for 11 million, and Nemecha to Wolfsburg for 7 million, whilst also letting Aguero and Eric Garcia go on frees to Barcelona. So decent business on the outgoings for them, getting a lot of the money back that they do spend on transfers. We mentioned Jack Harrison going to Leeds for Man City, probably daylight robbery for me, which is why Leeds are just above Man City in this table. They're coming in 6th place for me. So they've only made 3 senior signings this season. One is Junior Firpo from Barcelona, a left back costing £13 million, which is a steal considering the quality of the player that they are getting. I saw him play a little bit at Betis, and I didn't get a chance to see him, at Barcelona, because he never got a chance to shine it in the first team. Barcelona in massive financial trouble, which is why they're having to offload a lot of their young players. But from what I've read about Firpo, he's an attacking fullback. That is exactly what Leeds are going to need. He's replacing Alioski, who's out the door. And he's going to be probably a first team starter in that Leeds team, attacking down the wing, which suits that Leeds high pressing style, the constant back and forwards, the high press, and just overloading the wings as well. So brilliant signing from Leeds there, and for not too much money as well. And Jack Harrison finally committing his long-term future to Leeds United after being on loan for about 3 years, I think it was. Got them promoted from the Championship, stuck around in the Premier League, and now has made the signing permanent for £12 million, which again is an absolute steal. He got the same number of goals and assists as Jack Grealish last season. Obviously played a lot more games in a much more free-scoring team, but still, for a young English talented player, £12 million in this market is fantastic business from Leeds. And the third and final signing that they've made is a lad called Clarkson. He's a £2 million goalkeeper, purely signed as a backup goalkeeper, so no qualms about that from me. The average age of those signings, by the way, is 22 years old, which will become important in a second when I tell you they're outgoing. So they've let Barry Douglas, Ejan Alioski and Pablo Hernandez all walk on a free transfer. They've let Kiko Casilla and Mateus Bogus and Leif Davies all go out on loan, and they've released Gaetano Berardi as well. The average age of the players that they released is 29, so there's a 7-year age gap for those going out and those coming in, which is a real statement of intent from Leeds. They want to stay in the league, they want to make an impact. This is the second season they've had in the Premier League. This will be the season to mellow out, to secure their position again before they push on upwards next season. I wouldn't be surprised to see them do well again this season. Had a fantastic debut season in the Premier League, and yet again some good business from them in the transfer market. Sitting just outside the Champions League spots in 5th place are the last of our newly promoted teams, and that are Norwich. So we know Buendia left early in the transfer window to go to Aston Villa for £35 million, and that is, you think that's a bad deal for Norwich because he was their most creative player in the Championship. He's absolutely outstanding for them, but the last time they got promoted to the Premier League, he did flop a little bit. So it's smart from them to offload him so early and for so much, especially when Villa were willing to spend that straight away. So that £35 million has actually funded all of their incoming transfers, and there's 6 transfers that they've made this season. So that's very smart business from them. And on the outgoing side as well, they've also either released or loaned 12 senior players, creating a massive gap in that wage budget for these incoming signings. The first of those incoming signings is the one they spent the most money on, and that is a £10 million signing of Milot Rashica. He's from Kosovo, and he used to play for Werder Bremen, signed for around £10 million. I've seen clips of this lad online. He looks electric. He can play as like a number 9 off the striker or as a right winger. He's really, really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing him play in the Premier League. Whether he can cut it and whether he can provide those goals to keep Norwich in the league this time remains to be seen, but for their sake I hope he does. The second most expensive was Ben Gibson from Burnley. Once upon a time touted as the next big thing in England. He was going to be England's captain when he played for the under-21s. Never quite made the grade there, but still a good player, still a solid signing. Maybe you pair up with Grant Hanley at the back. We'll see if he slots straight into that first team. The next is Jan Lewis from PAOK in Greece. £7 million left back for them. Maybe finally a replacement for Jamal Lewis. So we'll see if he slots straight in that first team. I'm not going to lie, I've not heard of him, so we'll see if he goes in there. Then they've signed Lys Malou from Nice, £5 million. Very smart signing from them. Decent little player in the French league, centre mid that can run things from deep and get forward as well. So good signing there. And they've signed Angus Gunn for £5 million as well. Not sure who their first team goalkeeper is going to be next season. I guess we'll find out in about a week's time. So good signings from them all round. And maybe the most exciting, if you're a Norwich fan, is Bobby Gilmore on loan. So Billy Gilmore on loan from Chelsea. So maybe going to play with Todd Cantwell, or is a Todd Cantwell replacement if you're going to jump him to the bench. So exciting youngster from Chelsea. We'll see how he fares in that Norwich team. Hopefully we see a lot of him this season because I do like him. I do want him to do well for himself. Taking up that first Champions League spot in 4th position are Crystal Palace. Of course, under new management, under Patrick Vieira this season, they've made some very tidy signings over the summer transfer window. Their marquee signing this season has been Mark Guehi from Chelsea's under-23s, an unproven young centre-back, costing £21 million. It's a massive risk from Palace. They're putting a lot of money and a lot of faith into this young lad that's not played a professional game of football in the Premier League for them yet. We'll see how he gets on. Hopefully it pays off for them, because that's a lot of money to be risking on an unproven talent. But they have also brought in Joachim Andersen alongside him. £15 million from Lyon. Played, of course, for Fulham last season. Impressed in that relegated Fulham side. Was probably the strongest defender in that, maybe besides Adarabioyo. But good signings from them at the centre-back, especially because they've released Scott Dan and Gary Cahill. So there's a lot of experience just gone out of the dressing room there. Bringing in some young talent as well. Good business from Palace all around, quite impressed with them. And they've also signed Michael Olise from Reading. Probably you can equate him to Eze, the way Eze lit up the Championship. Olise has been lighting it up all the same this year for Reading. Really talented young attacking midfielder for £9 million. So it'll be really interesting to see how those two link up, if they get the chance to link up. Palace could be a dark horse for top 10 football, for maybe pushing European football this year. It depends how Vieira does as a manager, I have to say, because they've got some very talented players in that team now, and they've also got Conor Gallagher on loan, one of those players in the other video that I suggested we should maybe look into as a Newcastle transfer target this summer from one of those relegated sides. Conor Gallagher, again, another creative midfielder. Great signing on loan from Palace, on loan from Chelsea, of course. Some good signings on coming in as well, and they've let a lot of senior players go to clear up the space for those players. So James McCarthy, Andros Townsend and Patrick Van Aanholt all released on a free, as well as Mamadou Sakho and Wayne Hennessy, and they've released Connor Wickham, Scott Dan and Gary Cahill, as I've mentioned, just released them from the club. So a lot of wages gone out of those two. But without further ado, let's get into the top three. Coming in at third place, this season's Community Shield winners, Leicester City. First off, signing Ryan Bertrand on a free. Fantastic business, experienced winner. Started the Community Shield for them, and of course they won that game. He probably won't start in the Premier League, but it's a good head to have in that dressing room, and can come in and fill in fantastically well as well. Not a bad player to have as a rotation player. But the signing that surprised me the most was Boubakary Soumaré from Lille. Obviously just won the French league with them. Great defensive midfielder. Leicester somehow managing to get him for just £18 million when he was being touted for double that just last season. So fantastic business yet again from Leicester there. And of course their new marquee signing, Patson Daka, £27 million up front for him from RB Salzburg. Great signing, young, promising striker. Watched him in the Community Shield. That lad has got some burners on him. Premier League defenders will be looking over their shoulders terrified. If him, Jamie Vardy and Iheanacho can fire in the goals this season, I wouldn't be surprised to see Leicester around the top four again. Fantastic signings all round from them, and offloading a lot of some key senior players that were still earning at there. Wes Morgan retiring from football, Christian Fuchs and Matty James let go on free as well. So good business from Leicester, putting them in the third position. And then that leaves two teams left. In second place are Manchester United. Now, don't crucify me for putting them this high up, but some fantastic business. They finally got their man in Jadon Sancho. They've wanted him for ages, and they got him for a decent price. You know, £76 million. That's a good price for such a young talent in today's market. So £76 million for Jadon Sancho on a long-term deal. Fantastic business for them. Will add to that creative flair that they already have going forwards. Wouldn't be surprised to see them pushing for the title this year with him up top. But probably the more important signing in my eyes is Varane. Serial winner at Real Madrid. You know, multiple Champions League, World Cup. The lad is a winner, hands down. He's absolutely fantastic, and say what you want about him, he's one of the best centre-backs in the world, and it'll be interesting to see how he lines up, probably alongside Maguire in that team, with Lindelof and Bailly dropping to the background. Fantastic signing for only £40 million as well. That has got to be one of the coups of this season. Brilliant business from Manchester United, got to hand it to them. And of course, Tom Heaton coming in as a reserve goalkeeper after Romero was released as well. Good coming back to Man United for them, for Tom Heaton. Good business for them, and loaning a load of their youngsters out as per usual as well. Good business from Man United, especially if they can keep a hold of Paul Pogba as well. Can see them challenging for the title this year, unfortunately. And last but not least, the only team that I've not mentioned so far, Aston Villa. Fantastic ambition from Aston Villa. God, I'd love to see Newcastle have this ambition one day. Obviously one of the richest owners in the league, so we'll give them a bit of leeway, but Obviously, selling Jack Grealish recently for £100 million, that was inevitable that he was going to leave. But they haven't just took the profit and run. They haven't rested on the laurels. They've reinvested into this team. So, like I mentioned, Buendia, £35 million. Danny Ings, £30 million. Leon Bailey from Leverkusen, one of Europe's hottest prospects a couple of years ago, still doing the business in Germany. We'll see how he does in the Premier League. £30 million for him. Really exciting, tricky winger. See how he gets on. Ashley Young for that experience. He's coming in on a free from Inter Milan. And Axel Twanzebe, another one of Newcastle's targets, gone elsewhere. He's on loan from Manchester United at Villa this season. Obviously mentioning that Grealish had been sold for 100 mil, but getting rid of Samata for 5 million. That's quite good business considering how much he flopped at the club. Obviously Tom Heaton leaving, getting him off the wage bill, as well as Neil Taylor and El Mohammadi who were released. So all in all, they're my champions of the transfer market. They've spent, they haven't actually spent, they've made a profit from Jack Grealish. 100 million for him and around 95 for the players that they brought in. So incredible business from Aston Villa. We'll see if they can do without Grealish's goal contributions this season, but genuinely can see them pushing for top half this year, if not European football, depending on how they do without Grealish's goals. So yeah, that's my table. From top to bottom, Aston Villa, Man United, Leicester, Palace, Norwich, Leeds, Man City, Arsenal, Burnley, Everton filling out the top half, followed by Wolves, Watford, Liverpool, Southampton, West Ham, Chelsea, Brentford, and then a bottom three of Brighton, Spurs, and of course Newcastle United at rock bottom due to our severe lack of transfer business yet again. Thanks, Mike Ashley. Like I say, the window isn't over yet. There's still a little bit of time left for deals to be done. So this ranking could change. But if you've agreed or disagreed with me, let me know in the comments below. What are your rankings? Where would you put these teams? And also let me know who you think the best signing of this transfer market has been in the Premier League. For me, it's got to be Varane for Man United. £40 million for probably the world's best centre-back is an incredible steal, and it's exactly what they needed as well. But let me know in the comments down below what you think is the best deal that's gone down and your rankings as well. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to NFTV Extra and of course Newcastle Fans TV as well. Drop a like on the video if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video.
NFTV Extra.